Dear Bowden peoples, my heart is so full of fascinating, wonderful things to express to you, especially a young man named Akka. In our meeting, our family reunion, there were so many miraculous things. I want to express the awe and fascination of the overview of my life. When I was coming out of high school, I had a guidance counselor. And it was very frustrating because I was trying to figure out what I was going to study in college. And the guidance counselor was more delighted that I loved so many different ideas and careers. She was delighted that I loved so many things. But from my elders and parents, I wasn't getting an ability to get a spirit discernment about what path I should take. So I ended up having a dual major in college, a dual major of performing arts and marine sciences. Now, studying coastal geomorphology, the formation of inlets and coastlines. I grew up on the beach in Ocean City, New Jersey. And I did have a curiosity of why some beaches disappear and why some get bigger. And I had a marvelous guy as a professor. He worked for the Geological Survey, and in the summer times he would fly over vast areas of Alaska and set benchmarks for the Geological Survey. And he supplemented his program with all these photographs from his plane of all the work that he did. And it was fascinating. And I had these amazing people teaching me how to sing and express myself. Red letter, yellow leather. Red letter, yellow leather. And it was cool because I would try out for musicals in my college, and the director would be reviewing the potential people for the musical. And she was like, okay, Steve Lintner, what are you majoring in? And what is interpretation of a barrier island? And, I mean, she was a great director. And she had this style. Like, as we were flowing through a presentation of a play or musical presentation, we'd be working, and from the audience, we would hear, wrong, and everybody would freeze. And she would jump up on stage and show us a different blocking move. So I was saturated in ta 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 ta. I was saturated in performance and in marine science stuff. And when I walked into that room on Summer Rest Road, I walked into a room full of people that were amazing performers and amazing and noteworthy marine scientists. And that was not a coincidence. And that shook my soul. I was like in tears inside, in awe and amazement. That here's all these people that I've never met, far away from me in the world. And they are so much like me. It's amazing. It's glorious. And see, I want you to understand my anguish as well. I was a crisis pregnancy. I was a crisis pregnancy. My mother didn't know who the daddy was. There were 3 men that she had interacted with in a short period of time. My mommy was pregnant with me, and she was trying to commit suicide. She got pregnant at Duke College of Nursing. And then she had managed to pass her nursing boards. And Mom said to me, she said, I feel like if it weren't for the encouragement of Bert Bowden, I don't think I would have passed my nursing boards. He was so solid and confident and helpful and encouraging. And she said, he helped me face my nursing boards. He was such an encouraging and sweet and kind and positive person. And so she had to go back to South Jersey, Philadelphia area to do her nursing internship. She went to Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia. But at that time, she was pregnant. And she wanted to die. And little me was inside of her. So my first life awareness was like panic, shame, terror, horror, let's die. And this guy that she had met on the Ocean City boardwalk, this guy she had met, and she had made out with him. He could have been the dad, but she got pregnant in another state. When she came back, this one guy was the only person that she told that she was pregnant, because this guy wanted to care for children. He wanted to be a youth minister. And he was coming out of high school to go to Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania, to study to become a youth minister. And because he was kind of a God-focused guy, and she played the organ in the Lutheran church on Sundays, she told him, I'm pregnant and I'm scared. And he said, let's start a family. So when I was born, I had a daddy to catch me. And I did not even hear that this wonderful thing happened. I was adopted in the womb, and a family was made around little me. I didn't hear about that until I was 25 years old. And I was personally in the midst of polyamorous foolishness and promiscuity, thinking that it was all okay. Pictures and videos of naked people is just a fun part of life. Ordinary part of life. Now, years later, I discovered that there's a bona fide, solid reality in humanity. There's a gift to humanity. It's called discernment between spirits. The concept that there are spirit beings. There's a complex hierarchy of spirit beings that we have barely a clue about. And in that reality, there are spirit beings who carry our skills and abilities in a peculiar and fine lineage. A lineage through human generations. For example, you hear this lady say, that child is laughing exactly with the same laughter that her great aunt so-and-so used to laugh like. Nobody else would laugh like that lady. And this little child is laughing like her. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Songs and melodies, expressions and favorite skills and crafts and behaviors. My grandmother Graham and my great-grandmother, they had these lovely craft skills with needle and thread and ceramics and a kiln. And a love of helping children how to read. And I have that stuff. It's amazing. I have special skills with my hands. And then the shocking reality of Joyce Lee and I living 3 buildings apart on 108th Street in Manhattan, between Broadway and Amsterdam. All of these things are a wonder. And I wouldn't have met you guys if I had not read this beautiful little treatise that just freaked me out. The little eloquently written treatise that said, the most amazing story or drama that has ever been presented to the mind of human beings is the pre-written life of Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah of the Jews. No one else in all human history can claim or has obviously had, nobody else in human history has had 200 to 300 individual predictive points set in writings that stretch across 1,000 years, written by 40 people that didn't know each other. Marvelous. Amazing. Individual points, all pointing towards one event. All these predictions come true in one event, and the event is not a government. The event is not an earthquake. The event is not a war. The event is not an ice age or a superheating of the world. The event is just one little person who wanders around in an area the size of New Jersey and who is famous for healing the entire hospital of a town after town. But he is first famous for having power over spirit beings who are afflicting people's minds and personalities and behavior. He is sending spirit beings away from people who have personality disorders. He becomes first famous for that. I didn't know that. I mean, I spent 24 freaking years of research just sitting with those Christianity and religious people that I had slandered for 20 to 30 years. I went in those places and I sat down and I just observed. I knew in my guts that there was some wrong shit going on in the churchianity stuff. I could feel that in my guts when I was 14, and I left the church environment that I was raised in to just go and be. And I became a history researcher. The history of music, the history of cinema, the history of cool cars and transportation, choo-choo trains, the history of architecture. I'm a studier, baby. I love to study stuff and learn stuff. And then when I was hit with this little presentation, the most amazing story ever presented to the human mind is the pre-written life of Messiah Jesus in the Hebrew Scriptures. And then learning about the miracle of the Septuagint Bible. A guy named Ptolemy Philadelphus, a king in Egypt, decided to set up the Alexandria Library because he wanted all the business people traveling through Alexandria, which was the New York City of that era. He wanted everybody to come and read all the best science literature and spiritual literature and entertainment stuff. He's putting together the Alexandria Library. So he sends to Jerusalem and he says, "Hey, can I have a copy of you guys' book for my library?" Septuagint Bible. Septuagint is the number that means 70 in Greek. He asks Jerusalem for a copy of their Hebrew Bible to put in his library, and he realizes, hey, ain't no Hebrews in Egypt, and we could really use a Greek copy of your Hebrew scriptures. Would you be willing to be translators and translate all of your Hebrew into Greek? And to their credit, they agreed. And it's really weird. It's like the Israelites escaped Egypt, and now Egypt is inviting them to come back and tell their story. Fascinating. And this is the year 250 BC. 250 years before Jesus of Nazareth is born, this Egyptian king gets this idea. And the Jerusalem scribes say, yeah, that's a good idea. And so they communicate, they talk amongst themselves, and this guy, Ptolemy Philadelphus, sets up an enclave. He builds 70 houses for these Hebrew scholars to come down to Egypt and hang out and spend years translating the Hebrew Bible into Greek. This is going to take a long time. And Ptolemy Philadelphus, to his credit, says, I've noticed that there's a strange tendency for humans, when they confer about things, sometimes they don't come up with the best ideas. And they end up having a group decision that's a lesser idea. So he said, I would like to have 70 separate translations of Hebrew to Greek. And then when you guys are all done, I don't want you to talk amongst yourselves as you're working on the translations. Then when you're all done, my Greek experts and my translation experts, and we will decide together, what the best words to use are when you've finished with 70 copies. And we'll compare and figure out, which person has come up with the best translation decisions as we review the whole final project. So, translators come with their families and they camp out in Egypt for a period of time. It's a short journey from Jerusalem to Egypt. And when all 70 are done, there is a bizarre thing. They discover that each one of these human beings has made the same word choice for each word in the relatively large Hebrew scriptures. Amazing stuff. And that Septuagint Bible was actually chopped up, and some of it was set aside after Messiah Yeshua showed up, because some of the portions of the Septuagint scriptures actually really make Jesus of Nazareth look like the awaited Messiah. And there's some challenging points about how even Hebrew leadership can become nasty, prideful, and not kind. So after Messiah Yeshua shows up in around the year 70 to 100 AD, the scribes take out and hide a handful of the books of the Bible. And they come up with this translation that's referred to as the Masoretic texts. And there are certain little elements of that Masoretic text that are twisted, distorted, changed compared to the wild miracle Septuagint Bible. Now, I mean, this is only because I bump into this information, that there's all these predictions in the Old Testament that point to Jesus, and that indicates that there's some kind of supernatural presence over the Hebrew Scriptures. And the New Testament is a mess because, in reality, the whole New Testament is written 50 to 90 years after Jesus of Nazareth is gone. And how can you possibly have a pure account of a person's behaviors when those accounts are written down 50 to 90 years after the person is gone? I mean, come on. In logical library terms, it's ridiculous to think that these writings could be clean and excellent and bona fide and proper. But if there is a spirit being that somehow hovered over and guided